Are you on edge?
Come on.
We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs bi-monthly on MaximizeU.life and iTunes. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and courageous conversations about pushing boundaries, exploring our rough edges, and walking between the worlds of what is and what is yet to be. Join me, Sandra Bargman, on the edge of every day on MaximizeU.life. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome to the Edge of Every Day, now at MaximizeU.life and streaming on your favorite podcast platforms. Are you a change maker? Do you walk between worlds, between cultures, between systems? If you answered yes to any of these questions, the Edge of Every Day is the place for you. In a nutshell, this podcast is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradox and contradicting identities live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both individually and collectively. We live in edgy, challenging times, and we cannot keep looking away from the ugly, from the difficult. Silence is no longer an option. Life isn't black or white, it's both. And I want to talk about that. I want to face the tension of paradox, and I want to engage in the hard conversations. I want to explore the rough edges between our light-filled brilliance and our dark, shadowy corners, because the more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So thanks again for tuning in. Today, we are doing things a bit differently. In today's episode, as we did in my last episode, we are putting the spotlight on yours truly, moi. Yes, this is the second episode in my two-part series of me narrating from my contributing chapter, Anger and the Reluctant Leader, from the #1 best-selling book, On the Shoulders of Mighty Women, by my dear friend, Lesley Michaels, herself a mighty woman, that came out in 2022. In my last episode, I read the first half of the chapter in which I shared about the acknowledgement of my anger, how moving out of the city and into nature and having an epic mystical dream was instrumental in beginning to listen to and work with my anger, and my subsequent commitment to transforming it. Afterwards, my good friend and podcaster extraordinaire, Amy Lynn Durham, host of Create Magic at Work, joined me for a rich conversation in which we discussed why I even chose to write about anger, the betrayal and learned competition of women by women, and the penalties to women for displaying anger. We also, of course, touched on the power of storytelling and how I utilize storytelling in my teachings and in my writings, and how I work with clients to uplevel their storytelling for greater human-to-human connection, a powerful skill in great demand in 21st century leadership. So in today's episode, I will be reading the second half of my chapter. Again, it's titled Anger and the Reluctant Leader, from On the Shoulders of Mighty Women. And we'll be diving into another conversation about anger, what it is, and its relationship to leadership after the narration. And now I welcome back my wise and insightful friend, Amy Lynn Durham, to be my wing woman. Hello, Amy.
Hi. I'm excited to be here again. The first session was super magical, so
Truly.
this one I'm anticipating what's to come and that it will be really beautiful. So thank you for allowing me to have this space with you.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and for challenging me to even do it in the first place, and to not feel like, oh, I want it to be about my guest, not about me. Anyway, let me quickly give, this is a brief portion of Amy Lynn's bio. You can find her at createmagic.net to read all of the incredible things that she does, her coaching, et cetera, and about her podcast. But here's a portion of her CD. Amy is the host of the very popular Create Magic at Work podcast and the author of both the prompt journal, Creating Career Magic, and the activity book, Create Magic at Work. Through her multifaceted endeavors, Amy epitomizes the mission of Create Magic at Work to inspire intentional leadership, innovative strategies, and a culture of collaboration, transforming workplaces into thriving environments where magic is not merely a concept, but a tangible reality. Whew. Amen. So again, welcome. Again, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to get into this next portion of the conversation and hear what comes up for everyone, really, as you read this next.
Well, let's do it. Thank you, my friend. Let's dive in. Here we go. The second half of Anger and the Reluctant Leader by Sandra Bargman. Not getting what we want and getting what we don't want. This is the source of the anger. As an actor, a counselor, a public speaker, and coach, I believe that we all want greater connection and therefore better, deeper communication. How do we get real, get brave, get risky, and communicate effectively around our anger? The first step is getting in touch with it. Young women are socialized firmly with the idea that anger is incompatible with femininity and with understanding oneself as a good person. Case in point, my professional life began with highly competitive conservative training at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, followed by a career devoted to acting, singing, and performance based in New York City. I became aware of my anger when I was in conservatory. A rabid anti-smoker at that point in my short life, I became a smoker, a powerful, self-harming smokescreen. I'll never forget, in one of my earliest acting classes, I was doing a two-person scene with a fellow student in which I needed to become enraged. My partner and I rehearsed relentlessly, and finally we were ready to present our scene to the class. We emoted, rolled on the floor, threw props, finished, and took our places for notes from our instructor as well as our fellow classmates. Over and over, from each classmate and from my instructor, my note was that they didn't believe me, that I wasn't angry enough. I was speechless and confounded. I was so unaware, so detached from my anger that, and what it even meant for myself, that I couldn't conjure it. By the time I was a young adult, I had developed the firm belief that I was not someone who experienced anger. Like Ms. Shamali, I couldn't identify feelings of anger in myself at all. I'm not angry, I'm passionate, assertive. Little girls learn early, Ms. Shamali said, quote, that there are penalties for displaying anger. We know that there are risks to expressing your needs, which is what I think anger is, a self-defensive emotion. It's provoked by care or threat or indignation. The question is, Why do we learn as girls, which we do, to ignore those feelings? What possible good can come of that to us? End quote. At their core, both fear and anger are rooted in feelings of control. In most cases, when we experience fear, we may feel as though we have lost control of a particular situation, circumstance, or individuals. Anger is the unaware attempt to gain control, to combat feelings of victimhood and helplessness. Anger thwarts love and happiness, destroys relationships, crushes the spirit of children, isolates us from everyone around us. A spectrum of poor mental and physical health outcomes can be traced back to mismanaged anger. There are higher incidences of depression, binge drinking, and smoking among women as evidence of the damage internalized anger is wreaking. Depression, and there are many types of depression, is anger turned inwards. Women never learn how to express anger, which in turn makes them angrier. So how does anger relate to my leadership? It's been said that anger is the mask of pain and grief. I had the stereotypical life of an artist, many thrills, accolades, successes, and magical adventures alongside many heartbreaks and misfires, jobs taken away, jobs given away. My sadness and pain cut deep. In addition to being a terrific smokescreen for my feelings of vulnerability, anger opened the door to my righteousness, power, and moral superiority. Hadn't I been done wrong by those less talented, those looking to hurt me, jealousy, those chanting, "We hate Sandy"? My self-righteous anger was addictive, and I was free to be bitter, cruel, and judgmental. The heartbreaks and losses are to be expected, but often they felt planned, vindictive. Hadn't I whittled myself down enough to make everyone comfortable? I rest assured that my subsequent anger was a repellent to the very people I wished to attract. But here's the deal with this kind of anger. I can't predict anyone's behavior but my own. Yes, righteous anger is real and necessary. Yes, victimization occurs. I am in no way looking to diminish the outrage and anger caused by severe trauma and victimization. I am, however, suggesting that we must search for reconciliation. If we cannot find a way out of feeling helpless, then we cannot find our voice. We cannot change our worlds. At some point, I must decide that I am not helpless, that ultimately I am not a victim, that I do have choices. I finally listened to the call of leadership. In my 40s, I was called to step out of the proverbial closet and to serve and lead in a spiritual capacity. I enrolled in seminary, and after finishing the 2-year program, was ordained at St. John the Divine as an interfaith interspiritual minister. I went on to another 2 years of seminary, obtaining an advanced certification in spiritual counseling. I quickly learned that the spiritual world was no different from the world of show business. Understanding spiritual principles and living them, I was to learn, are two vastly different paths. The spiritual world enraged me more than the world of show. A quick story to illustrate and illuminate this point was a dinner I had with a seminary mentor. I had completed my second seminary training and had invited my mentor to dinner to celebrate. After a lovely meal filled with lively conversation, I leaned in to make a particularly exciting point, very animatedly gleeful. after which I was promptly told by my mentor that I could never counsel or minister to people with that level of energy and intensity. In essence, as I heard it, I could not be myself. Not surprisingly, I chose to feel hurt and angered by this exchange rather than to simply see it for what it was, just his opinion. As truth would have it, I am a natural-born leader, and I've always known it. I understand I walk in the world with natural authority, and most of the people in my inner circle would claim that I am fearless. But I also have a distaste for top-down hierarchy, knowing that I am also a natural-born rebel. In addition, I have always felt that I existed in liminal places, the edges. I was easily bored in the world of show business and impatient with and turned off by the preciousness of the spiritual community. The cruel competition of the former and the lack of engagement in the latter played heavy on my heart, more often than any joy experienced. I was looking for realness and aliveness. In childhood, I wanted to change the world. As an adult, I fought not to be changed by the world. So I chose to stay at the periphery of each tribe, never fully committing to one group. This afforded me easy movement, liminality, or so I thought. And it also offered me the classic recipe for self-righteous anger. In her book, The Leadership Gap, What Gets Between You and Your Greatness, Lolly Daskell discusses leadership archetypes, the strengths and weaknesses of each. I quickly identified mine. The rebel leader is driven by confidence, and the dark side of the rebel is the imposter, plagued by self-doubt. The hero leader embodies courage, and the dark side of the hero is the bystander, who is fearful. In 2014, I started my own business, Sacred Stages LLC, that combines my performance background with my ministry. The idea of Sacred Stages was born in seminary, out of my own longing. While I enjoy studying the world's religions, I was not a part of any one of them. As we've established, I'm not a joiner. So where do I go to have an expansive experience with community? To the theater, of course, where the stage is my altar. That year, I wrote and produced and performed my first one-woman show under the umbrella of Sacred Stages, The Edge of Every Day, which was constructed like a ritual, blurring the lines of cabaret, ritual, and performance art. It was my own personal ritual of blurring the lines of my old understanding of performance, that of playing a role, and finding and speaking my own voice in performance. The cabaret rooms of Manhattan became my churches, and my cabaret ritual, my preaching. In the show, I explored through song and musings the blurred edges between the light and the darkness, the complexities and dichotomies of life. It mirrored my internal experience and edges, and spoke to the growing anger and political polarization on the American and global landscape. The show received rave reviews, had sold-out performances, held great promise, but I also knew that it would receive pushback. My vision was to create a new genre and lead with my own voice. So when the inevitable pushback arrived, the sadness and anger resurfaced. I had a choice to make. Was I going to get to the bottom of this or keep recreating it? Was I going to finally embrace my anger as an agent for change rather than a roadblock to leadership, to sharing my own voice? In his book, Leadership Pain, Sam Shand writes, reluctance to face pain is your greatest limitation. Reluctance to face pain is your greatest limitation. There is no growth without change, no change without loss, and no loss without pain. Answering a calling is no small feat. It is fraught with challenges, and realizing a vision does not happen without struggle, strife, and loss. When you hold a powerful point of view, there will always be those who disagree, and strongly. I needed to summon my deepest sense of self-trust and courage. As author and inspirational speaker Simon Sinek has said, if everyone agrees with you, it probably means that you don't stand for anything. I made a paradisiacal discovery, one that I could never have seen coming. I was afraid. I was afraid to lead with my own voice and my own message. My anger reflected my fear. Anger may be the mask of pain and grief, but more importantly, it is the mask of fear. Like most women, I had learned at a tender age that it was more important to be liked than it was to be respected. I had learned early on to people please as a strategy to feel safe and in control. I wanted to please. I wanted to be loved and revered. I did not want to experience pushback. No, I did not want to see the faces of others twisted with misunderstanding, ridicule, cruelty, dislike, or jealousy, true or imagined. Anger is boldness in action. If we are willing to look within and to get real about not only its sources, but also transmuting and focusing it. Otherwise, the rage fire will burn you and your dreams down. Owning the fear and the anger is the passage out. And it's the key to unlocking the door of judgment and impatience and moving into vulnerability and authentic communication. I genuinely believe women want greater and deeper connection, which leads to authentic, effective communication and a sharing of one's true voice. This is leadership. There we go. And I end I was asked to provide some ways out of anger and what I do. And we can talk about that at the end if we have any time, but they're just lovely ways that people can deal with their anger as ways of finding the door in to even acknowledge it and to unpack getting triggered. And so we can revisit that at the end if we have any time left. But that's the end of the actual reading.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like, wow. Woo. Exhale.
Yeah,
That was powerful.
it's a lot. It's funny, just reading about it just brings so much, it gives me a lump in my throat. Really, it's my path.
Mhm.
Having to, to really get into that and why is it? What is it? Really continuing to unpack that and to not be triggered by it and to transmute it into action taking. I mean, what we're seeing on the political landscape today, baby. How do I channel that rage and that anger into action, which is, and it's taking action that gives us the hope.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I'm curious about women who don't identify with feelings of anger in themselves.
Yeah, wild, right?
Yeah. And that moment that you had that feedback from your
And
acting colleagues
yeah,
and that realization, if somebody is feeling that way, what would you say to them in order to maybe start cultivating that recognition.
You mean to the recognition that you're even angry?
Yeah. Or that you're maybe might be holding on to some anger.
Mm. Oh, that's a great question. Whew. Um, Again, I would say, before I even answer that, I would say that prob there's no, can't imagine that there's any female on the face of the planet does not walk in the world with anger. Just looking at their marginalization and how having our rights taken away for God's sake. I don't know that every woman experiences it though as fiery or as burning rage in the same way that I might.
Mhm.
So to those people, I mean, for instance, I think I said this in the last episode. I don't think my mom walked through the world ragefully, but I also, it was the times I don't think we got the information in the same way of what's happening globally and the true put down of women. And I don't think, we didn't have social media. We didn't receive information in the same way. And so, I mean, the only person that I can sort of think of that I might would I, suggest to them that what portions of your life do you not feel heard? I mean, do you feel
Mm.
shut down? Um, is it your work environment? I mean, do you feel as though the men are getting ahead in ways that you're not getting ahead? I mean, where do you feel that your voice, that where you don't have a seat at the table, the proverbial table? Where do you feel as though you're talking into the void? Is it at home? Is it in your relationship? Is
Mm.
it so I don't know that I would really have to struggle with any woman to get them to admit to being angry. Now, expressing it, that's a whole nother thing.
Mhm.
Healthy expression of it. And I certainly, like I said, understanding my own personal righteousness and that well, I've been done wrong, so I can be all righteous about what I think. And I think that's just a strategy to self-protect. And you can see it in the way the people who are overtly angry. You can see that as a sort of a self-protection strategy, that if
Mhm.
I'm angry enough, I have this force field around me and you're just not getting in.
Mhm. Some of the things that you wrote about, well, let me go back a little bit. When you speak about your mom, the word suppression came up for me when you were talking
Mm.
about. So maybe, and of course, I'm generalizing. I don't mean to be judging, but perhaps during those times there was anger and it was just
Oh,
suppressed, right?
completely.
And now I feel like you're feeling this, hey, we have this recognition, like from a mass consciousness perspective with women, that we are angry.
Yeah.
We're pissed.
Yeah. And there's a
And
lot.
we're not suppressing it anymore.
Exactly. Those
um,
times are over.
or and I should say, not but, and the way we are playing with the way we are expressing that for impact, because
Yeah.
we've never been able to express it
Press it.
before.
Bingo.
So when you talk about assertive or aggressive, or how do I express this anger? Yeah, I mean, these are a few of my musings. You also mentioned that it's a self-defensive emotion. It's an attempt to gain control because we feel out of control. So with all of these things, there was a mention to transmuting.
Mm.
I'm wondering, for everyone listening, if someone, myself included, is like, yeah, I recognize I'm angry, like I'm feeling this. And actually it's bubbling up in ways that I don't feel good about when I'm expressing it.
Mm.
How do we catch ourselves
Well, that's it.
to transmute it?
But the catching of the self where you're squelching it. It's
Okay.
getting in touch with the moments where you self-sabotage. Where in my life have I not shared what I wanted to share in a authoritative way, or in a way that was where I took care of myself
Mhm.
and expressed my feelings of hurt or fear or whatever very straightforwardly, and where I was shut down. And so where did I whittle myself down? And I talk about that in the chapter. How did I whittle myself down and not share who I was for the sake of being liked, for the
Mhm.
sake of not seeing those faces twisted and misunderstanding? Not everyone is at the point where they can access this or is even willing to do it. That's okay. And I think we talked about that in our dealing with other women that are competitive, that aren't at the place quite yet where
Mhm.
they can even acknowledge that it's not other women that they're angry with. They're angry with the system. They're angry with not that they are kept down. They're angry. Once you can admit that, you can funnel that into, I am going to speak up, and I am going to say that this is wrong. And unfortunately, the trailblazing, you've got to be willing to not be liked. We gotta You gotta be willing to be kind and maybe not nice.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
for
gotta
me,
be mm,
yeah, so it's not catching it, because that's censoring yourself, I guess, if we're talking about it in that way. And there was this theme that I picked up on throughout this of feedback going on, right? How we're
yes,
receiving feedback, and how we are taking it so as personal attacks,
yes,
rather than this is someone's opinion and I'm going to either take it or leave it, and this isn't even about me. When you
yeah,
talk about getting feedback on your spiritual counseling, I was like, how many, and then the other thread within that is the people pleasing.
yeah.
We're you were sharing the way your unique way was going to be with spiritual counseling, and someone had a different opinion. And
And by the way, that was a man.
what, right? Yeah, but like, and it's like, where's the light bulb clicked on for me when you were reading that? Like, their opinion doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
matter.
We can take it or leave it. This is the way your unique blueprint is in the world to do this work. And the people that love it are going to work with you.
Yeah.
And
But
we often sit in these spaces and share our thoughts and are waiting to hear if it's okay. Do you think that's okay? Is that okay?
oof. And more often than not, we're doing that. We're trying to get that from the man.
Hmm.
And it's, again, I'm going to just baked in. And so it's catching that in the moment, being vigilantly courageous in self-assessing the moments when we shut ourselves down, because we won't let other people do it if we don't do it to ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is that's really the key, is seeing those, because then we don't people please again, and we don't ask for that feedback, or maybe asking for it is not even the right thing. It's always good to get good feedback, but more to the point, not taking it personally if we disagree with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Whole shift, a little light bulb aha for me too. Just there's the layers, right? Feedback has always felt personally attacking to me at times. And I've never made that personal connection until now with your reading, that it's tied to my people pleasing. And I would imagine that it's like that for a lot of women. I'm not alone,
Of
right?
course not.
And so it's like, oh, I can share what I'm passionate about. You can offer your feedback, but I'm a whole separate being and person with a whole unique blueprint. And I can choose to listen to it and make some tweaks, or say, no, 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 that doesn't work for me. And then I haven't betrayed myself. And it's this separation of your identity not being attacked, which is incredible. The other thing I want to ask about that really intrigued me was this gap between understanding and living something that you mentioned.
Right.
Because I can sit here all day long and understand, oh yeah, like we're angry. I get angry. I do things I regret. I lash out at my partner. I can get fiery at times. But now I'm really intrigued by this transmutation of it, right? How do we use this for the greater good? How do we use this for our benefit? How do we live it? Because it sounds like you've seen both sides, right? Being in the deep in the spiritual community of running into individuals that clearly understand what they've read but aren't living.
Aren't walking the path. Yeah.
Yeah.
That are psychologically immature. And I mean, you can know spiritual concepts and know all about Hinduism and know all about Buddhism, but to be psychologically immature in that you aren't walking through the world with any genuine wisdom, and you aren't living the concepts. You are, and so that was really eye-opening for me, and I don't know why it should have been shouldn't have been, or should have been eye-opening. Of course it would exist. I mean, it was just, at the time I was sort of, when I got to seminary, I was sort of like, I finally found my people. So I'm home. By the end of the first day, I was like, oh no, it's like just like every other community. There are some people, it's a great way to, for like show business, to hide some bad behavior. Because I know a lot about all of these wisdom traditions. Who's gonna bump up against me? Well, I will, because you're not walking your talk. You're psychologically immature. But but in terms of just being willing to unpack the triggers and be willing to, again, find those moments, be in the moment, be vigilant with that self-assessment, and be kind to yourself. Sometimes you're gonna overreact, because we are learning how to express it. I mean, my husband has, when I go off sometimes, drive away, he's like, no road rage, Sandra, no road rage. And I mean, it's a perfect place for that, to get triggered. I mean, it's, of course you don't want to express your anger through driving. I mean, it's like ridiculous, but I use it sort of as a comical example that, okay, oh my God, I'm doing this crazy thing, you got to take a look at this. You've got to unpack this. And why were you triggered by that? Why did that piss you off? And keep asking why, and keep backing out. Why was that? And that's sort of the thing that I talked about. Let me bring that up. Yeah, this is what I have as the why game. When you find yourself in a situation or experience when you are reacting with anger, or any other emotionally triggered way, stop, get quiet, and ask yourself why. Why am I angry, or fill in the emotion? Why does this make me feel angry? Why do I feel so triggered? Stay quiet and present to the answer that comes to you. Don't judge it, just stay with it. When you're ready, treat your answer with the same questions. With each answer, try to simply stay present to the answer without judgment and keep backing out and asking why.
Mhm. Yeah, I even had a question just come up for me while you were reading that, to ask, why do I feel out of control?
Yeah.
Why, and seeing if that can bring something up from a different angle too.
Or
Really, really
unsafe.
impactful. Yeah, why do I feel unsafe? Why do I feel out of control?
Mm.
Is it really the person I'm lashing out at's fault?
Right.
Why
Exactly.
do I really feel
Is
out of
this
control?
really about how I wish I had talked to my father or my uncle
Right.
or my brother or my, well, is
Yeah.
it that I just never got to say these things in the moment when I was a young person or a little kid or at work? I squelched myself, and then, then the lid blows because you
Yeah.
haven't handled it in the moment. So
Mm-hmm.
I have this amazing, because I think it's, the issue is it's for women is really just getting in touch with it. To our point is like, what is it? What is anger? And I think women, of course, struggle overall, even knowing that we're rageful, even knowing that, struggle with what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this quote that I want to read from Rage Becomes Her, the book that I referenced in the writing, by Soraya Shamali. She writes, anger is an assertion of rights and worth. It is communication, equality, and knowledge. It is intimacy, acceptance, fearlessness, embodiment, revolt, and reconciliation. Anger is memory and rage.
Mm.
It is rational thought and irrational pain. Anger is freedom, independence, expansiveness, and entitlement. It is justice, passion, clarity, and motivation. Anger is instrumental, thoughtful, complicated, and resolved. In anger, whether you like it or not, there is truth. One more paragraph. Anger is the demand of accountability. It is evaluation, judgment, and refutation. It is reflective, visionary, and participatory. It's a speech act, a social statement, an intention, and a purpose. It's a risk and a threat, a confirmation and a wish. It is both powerlessness and power.
Mm.
In anger, you will find both ferocity and comfort, vulnerability and hurt. Anger is the expression of hope.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. So, once we finally unpack this, that it is not just, I mean, we have this vision of anger as this sort of rageful male getting uplifted, or this, screaming, unliked, awful woman. Once
Mm.
we can blow that out as anger is our great teacher, this is an injustice. Pay attention and allow it its voice. Now, no, you're not going to scream. Hopefully, you'll learn not to do that, scream at everybody when it arises, but it's there to cue you. It's there, like, pay attention. This is something to really deeply look into. If you're this angry, pay attention.
So good. So good. And it might not be what triggered it, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's like, wow, where is this coming from? Uh, that just came up for me as like a reminder, like it might not be where it's coming from, but then if you unpack the layers like you talked about, then we can get to root source and be like, this actually might be where it's coming from. And
Yeah.
then we can have that transmutation that you referenced. Um, I know we're going on time, but I do have something I wanted to pick your brain on with it,
Oh, great.
which is
Please.
because I want to tap into, um, finally this reluctant leader. I don't think
Mm.
we've touched on that yet. And thinking of the corporate space, women in leadership and all of those things. I know we talked about that scarcity feeling in the last episode where it's like, okay, I have the spot, there isn't room for anybody else.
Mm.
It's me and 15 other men. So
Right.
there isn't another room for another woman at the table here. That's that scarcity piece, right? Um, but also you talk about personally getting tapped to step up into leadership and being reluctant. And I find that interesting because it aligns with the data that most women do not they don't apply for leadership roles initially. They
Mm.
get tapped to
Yeah.
to step into the role. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that, because I think it just speaks to the system that we're in.
Yeah. I
Um,
I agree with it, but we can trace it for me personally back to edge walking as well. Amy and I are both edge walkers, and we reference edge walking many, many times. In fact, I discovered edge walkers. I said this in our last episode. I discovered when I was writing this chapter and had started my podcast, and I was writing the chapter saying I like the liminal spaces. I walk the edges of my communities, and that's when I Googled that phrase and discovered edge walkers and Dr. Judy Neal, and
mhm,
invited her onto my podcast. Fabulous. But I think I have always seen myself as an edge walker, as a person who likes the edges of the communities in which I walk. I and I never want to be, I'm happy to go into the center of all of these communities if I need to, but I find that the system as it is, the status quo lives in the center. It's not on the
mm,
edge.
mm,
And generally speaking, the leadership style that people want is the kind that lives in the center of the community, the status quo. And my style of leadership is finding the courage to share my voice in a powerful, uplifting, and transformative way. That's what I do. I've devoted my life. That's why I perform. That's why I teach. That's why I'm an interfaith minister. All of this know thyself, sharing my voice and being real about who I am, and embodied spirituality and sharing my voice in a big way. That that is my leadership style. And I believe that is in complete alignment with 21st century leadership.
mhm,
And yes, I'm happy to manage people and direct people and all of and have, but
mhm,
it's not what I model in all of my how people would express seeing me as a leader.
mhm,
What they see, how they see my leadership is how I model in my everyday. Like, as one of my minister friends says, you just do everything as a minister. You model the spiritual concepts. You model self-leadership. You model that for in every situation.
love it. And exercise major self-compassion if we make a mistake every once in a while.
Oh, yeah, I'm working on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one final, well, how can somebody, if they're feeling helplessness in finding their voice, which I already want to say, like, please reach out to Sandra. Storytelling and her coaching can incredibly help crack that open for you.
Yeah.
But for someone listening, what's one takeaway they could get to if they're feeling helpless and finding their voice, and like listening to you, like, wow, this woman is so strong and incredibly powerful in the way she shares.
Well,
Yeah.
great question. It's twofold. It's having the physical embodied skills of how to grow your vocal ability, how to, build your breath, be comfortable in your body language, all looking at all of those things. But it's also tapping into, I think people, they learn that sharing your voice powerfully, they don't go from the inside out, they go from the outside in. And that it's not recreating what this well-known powerful speaker or this well-known person who has a big voice in the world, it's not doing it like that. It's doing it like you do it. It's getting in touch with who you are and the values that you hold, and how you want to share those in the world. A very quiet person who's naturally quiet can work on, enlivening their vocal skills and their vocal technique and their breath support and all of those, and their diction and all of that. But they can be profoundly powerful still being quiet. Being and giving that, and we talked about this, you and I too, giving themselves permission to explore and try on who they think they're not. Giving themselves permission to try on styles of speaking, ways of thinking, who they think they're not, and to play with all of these things and allow themselves to see themselves anew, when in fact it really is just who they've been waiting to share.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. This has been incredible to be a part of. So I'm very honored to have been here along this amazing journey. I'm glad it's going to live for a really long time in the virtual ethers. And I really that we helped everyone explore this theme a little bit more. And brought some transmutation and healing to it. Yeah.
Amen. Amen for that. Well, it's talking about it with you as it's already, it's the vulnerability and the storytelling. Again, it's what I do in all I do, helping people get vulnerable, get real, and speak their truth and raise their voice. Amy Lynn, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me and listening to my narration and urging me to do this, and for all the magic that you create in the world. Thank you.
I'm going to say you're welcome now. I was going to say thank you back, but you know what? I'm going to say you're welcome.
Amen. I love that. Receive. Yeah. Folks, you can find Amy again at createmagic.net and on LinkedIn, and listen to her podcast, Create Magic at Work. You can find that on all your major podcast platforms of choice. And again, I ask you to share this podcast with your friends, your colleagues, etc. You can reach out to me. My website is sandrabargman.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm across socials. Like me at Sandra Bargman. Reach out to me. Share this. Let's amplify these good, courageous conversations. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. Until we speak again, take good care.